Maybe the Star Wars Constraction will keep on going and there'll be a new release every movie, but eventually I think with the Star Wars movie there will be a kind of fatigue and the quality of the sets will just diminish to a point where maybe just nobody will want to get a figure from the Star Wars Constraction.
I was surprised by how many of our predictions we actually got right from that video back in 2017. With Star Wars, the movies, kind of having that fatigue and Constraction waning as a result. Solo was kind of the death knell for Constraction.
There's been no mainline Constraction sets released for the first time since 2000... No, even 1999, because Slicers.
Constraction is dead, and Han Solo killed it.
As a famous philosopher once said, Waj, I'm living like a star. You can't stop my shine. I'm loving Cloud City. My head's in the sky. I'm Solo. I'm Han Solo. I'm Han Solo. I'm Han Solo.
He's living his best life. We did get a couple of sets that never came out. The Super Battle Droid and... was it the ATST?
No, not ATST. It was ATRT, All-Terrain Recon Transport.
Right.
Which are the little, chicken walkers that the clones ride around on. It was actually going to be a 501st Trooper, as I recall it. But the point is that, we got leaks for the ATRT and Super Battle Droid. And the Super Battle Droid looked really, really cool. To me, at least. Both of them were, no humanoid, and it's fine.
Yeah, we talked about having more droids. And sure enough, they were gonna have more droids.
Yep. But as the story goes, as I've heard it, at Toy Fair, the distributors looked at them and they said, we are not buying them because they will not sell. It was very clear to anyone that G2 was probably not selling great. But if G2 wasn't selling great, Star Wars Constraction just wasn't selling. For probably a wide number of reasons. But the nail in the coffin was that. And actually, as soon as I heard that those two sets were canceled, I was like, alright, well, Constraction is dead. And then I immediately went out and I bought all the slicers because now there is a finite amount of Constraction that I could feasibly go out and collect.
That's true. We have a certain idea of what Constraction is, but as far as what LEGO has kind of been transitioning to, the line between what is and isn't Constraction, I would say, is blurry. So I think, we need to kind of define what is Constraction really? It comes from the terms constructible action. That's what it's referring to. It's constructible action figure. Constraction figure. In terms of how it has traditionally been presented, is it's sets that have rather large pieces and that can be put together fairly easily. There's not necessarily the most amount of complexity to Constraction sets. It's so that you can just get to playing with the figure. There's usually some sort of function, not necessarily a gear function, but it's usually a weapon or tool, rather.
It needs to have some kind of play feature.
That's the action part of it. A lot of system sets are a fair bit more complex, but still have a degree of, say, posability. Certain sets do have functions and are built to be slightly more sturdy and articulate. I feel like LEGO is kind of transitioning into just having sets that have more of a degree of complexity, but still a fair amount of flexibility. There's still a give and take between those two things. The more complex you get, it can be harder to be flexible.
There's the new Minecraft buildable figures, and there's the question of, is this the new Constraction? My thought would be no. Not because it is exclusively made out of bricks, because I think you can have Constraction that's brick-based. I just think that there isn't that play function aspect to them that other Constraction sets have had. But it's a great line, because Ben 10 sets didn't have any sort of play function to them. Do they not count as Constraction? I don't know.
There's always, exceptions to it, so that's why it's hard to come up with a full definition for it.
I think that, smaller Ninjago mechs, even larger Ninjago mechs, I would count that to be Constraction to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we're talking about Constraction lines, we're talking about lines that are either exclusive or primarily non-minifigure based, for the most part. When people think of Constraction, that's what they think of. They think of Bionicle, Hero Factory, they think of G2, they think of the Chima Ultra builds. Everyone remembers the Chima Ultra builds. Praise Gorzan! I think about them constantly.
Okay.
Why didn't they release the European ones in the US? Anyway. So, like, Constraction, in my mind, I think it kind of has to be either ball joint related or ball joint adjacent. Because, like, the Knights Kingdom figures in Galador weren't ball joint based.
Yeah, they're Ratchet.
I would consider Ratchet joints to be ball joint adjacent. Because really, it was an attempt, and is an attempt, to have just a stronger ball joint system. Which, as was figured out, works great on large scale, works terrible on small scale. Like, the posability on the Knights Kingdom figures is just ball.
The thing about Constraction as well is that I think it was the second wave of Hero Factory that they introduced CCBS.
It was, yep.
Essentially, CCBS was LEGO's way of creating a system for constructible action figures.
And for that purpose, they did an amazing job. CCBS is an incredible system for what it is, like, making literally all parts of it ball joint based. And the fact that they started from the ground up with a brand new system that barely had any holdover from any previous lines, it really is incredible. But the question is, Waj, with the future of Constraction.
Oh, the future. The year is 2030X. What is LEGO? What is the state of the world?
Do you think that the future of Constraction is CCBS?
I personally don't think that CCBS will be used in the future as far as creating a total line out of it.
I've long thought CCBS is a great system. Designers of it did a wonderful job. It needs to go. And I hate to say it because I love CCBS as a system, but it doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because they created a system that doesn't play well with the rest of LEGO. It is more difficult to work with shells with regards to, like, system, or with regards to even older Constraction stuff. The shells in particular have odd angles to them that make them not only difficult to work with other systems, but hard to, like, work with themselves sometimes. I think that's one of CCBS's biggest downfalls, is that it's harder to integrate. That's not to say it's impossible. All good mockists, like, know how to integrate CCBS wonderfully into their mocks, but on a set standpoint, like, a few of the Star Wars Constraction sets had a few system pieces, but it was relegated to, like, the guns, or, like, the back of the legs, and it was incredibly sparse. If LEGO decides they want to give Constraction another shot, I personally think that what they need to do is they need to do what they did with CCBS, and basically just start with something completely fresh, and I think that has to be something that is a system that you can integrate more easily with system. Because as much as a lot of Constraction fans hate to say it, system is what sells. Now, for a future Constraction line, I'm on the fence as to whether you can have an original Constraction line and have it succeed in today's modern day toy climate. Because all of that really boils down to, like with any toy line, the marketing. Because what sold Bionicle wasn't kids going necessarily, oh hey, look, there's a cool toy in that toy aisle. I'm sure a certain amount of it was, but so much of it was the marketing. So it's really hard to say about, like, the actual sets, whether or not an original storyline, whether all that happens. I know a lot of people be like, oh, well, it's gotta have an extensive story just like Bionicle. No, screw you. It doesn't.
Yeah, marketing is definitely quite vital, but also, if the product itself is in a market that hasn't done well, it needs something to differentiate itself from past iterations of Constraction, so that, like, it could actually be picked up and be sold at retail stores. Say it's 2030. I think LEGO might try and create another castle theme. Say Knights Kingdom 3. The sets themselves wouldn't necessarily be the traditional Constraction that we have sort of been talking about, but rather the newer kind that really is just system. Or perhaps they'll create an entirely new system.
What if, as a tie-in to a new Constraction line, they released, like, a free-to-play game, they were marketing the game, and then the figures are a tie-in to the game? Kind of like a Fortnite sort of deal. I think that would potentially bring in sales.
Will we be correct about these predictions? Who knows? I would really like to hear from our viewers, our dear listeners, if you have ideas for what you think the future of Constraction would be like, let us know, and we will respond to you.
As long as you don't say it has to be story-based, or else it's stupid and
Then
will
Slime will
not
have
succeed.
to fight you, yeah.
I will have to fight you, unfortunately. That is just... It's a legal requirement.